Forgive me here, kids. Just gonna look at this. All right, this is the Wednesday, October 9, 2024, regularly scheduled Cohasset Affordable Housing Trust meeting. First order of business is a call to order. So with that, we'll call to order by way of roll call. Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson present.
Rob.
Jeffers present.
Rob Henry.
Rob Henry present.
Steve Gomer present. We do have a quorum. And so this initiates the meeting.
Would you rather have me sit over there?
No,
Okay.
it's okay. That's okay. I can see where everybody is. This keeps my neck flexible. The first item on the agenda is public comments for items not on the agenda. Do we have any that you know? Okay. All right, and moving along, the next item is the Heather Drive sale and closing update. So, who wants to tackle this one?
Okay. So we
You're
are
next.
hopefully set to close before the 18th. Michelle was having the town's attorneys review the PNS. They have gotten, last I spoke to them on Monday, some final documents, and then they were gonna hopefully close before the 18th.
Okay. Do you know if is there earnest money already put forward? Money in escrow? Deposit?
I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Would you happen to know? Karen?
It was not in the bid that I recall, and I don't recall seeing it in the PNS. So let me take a look after I give you my update. And thank you. So, Heather Drive PNS has been reviewed and approved by me. I have passed on the project to my real estate colleague, Attorney Guerin, who is working with Attorney Sullivan representing the buyer. They have a meeting tomorrow. They have just working on the last final documents and setting a closing date, which I believe will be in the next 2 weeks. That's what I've asked for the closing to be in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, and I understand that the town's attorneys were referred to it as well. I just want to make sure there's no duplication of effort here. But I want to make certain it keeps on track. So,
So did you
Could-
send it, I'm sorry, did you send it to town council?
Michelle had sent it to town council.
Oh, okay, all right. I hadn't heard anything from town council, or I didn't know that it was going to town council, so
Okay.
that's
So-
fine.
If you're estimating in the next 2 weeks, would before the 18th be a sooner process?
Well, 2 weeks today's the 9th, so I believe Attorney Sullivan is on vacation next week. So I don't know what his backup schedule is. One of the things they're deciding tomorrow in their meeting is a closing date.
so can I ask that, first of all, it's the trust's objective to get this closed, right? It was originally intended to be closed by the end of September. There is,
And I take responsibility for the delay there.
right. I appreciate that. Now, with that objective still standing, I am going to leave it to the direct communication between yourself
Yep.
and town's council to determine who takes this forward such that we can get it closed as soon as possible. I'm ambivalent. We want the PNS reviewed. We want feedback
deposit.
coming from it. That's, thank you. I'll come back to that. And if the 18th is the planned closing date, then let's execute. If the buyer's attorney is not going to be available for the 18th, well, that's not our problem, right? But I just want to get it executed. Are there any other comments from the board?
What was the final, I'm sorry, I know we mentioned before, what was the final sale price that we got for it?
$90,000, is that correct?
And it's from the abutter? who-
It's from the abutter.
Yep.
And we're delayed in getting it executed, Rob. And it's on our end.
Yeah, and so it's not
Alright.
that we're worried that they're gonna back out or anything like that.
No, having said that, though, I wish we had reviewed the bid from that perspective,
Yeah.
right? that I claim responsibility for that. That's just, the bid document went out. I'm not certain that the trust actually reviewed it. But if we didn't, again, shame on me for not asking to have it included in the agenda. That's my view on real estate purchases is,
But there's no discussion that we've had with them to make them think that we think that they're.
No,
trying to
no,
get
no,
out of
no,
it.
no,
So
no.
should be fine.
no, and I would leave that to council to address, but from my understanding of it, the buyer is proceeding
Okay.
at a faster pace than we are.
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's always good.
no, Attorney Sullivan has been on top of it.
Yeah.
The documents came in during my trial and then I had COVID. And so no, but look, I just want to be clear. I am the reason for the delay and I have now reviewed the PNS, signed off on it. It's with my real estate counsel. She's spoken to Attorney Sullivan. They're meeting tomorrow, setting a closing date, going through the last pieces that they need to pull together, and getting it ready for closing. So I will know tomorrow what they say about a closing date, and I'll talk to you and Michelle after the meeting perhaps.
Sure.
So we can just make sure that we're not duplicating effort.
Absolutely.
In relation to that, I've had a separate conversation with Karis as counsel. The conversation's been frank, expressing the concerns noted by the board, the trust, I should say, in the last meeting. Karis pointed out as well that one of the areas where she personally expects to show a good deal of progress is in delegation. A perfect example is within trial, that takes precedence over so many things. However, review of a PNS is a pretty straightforward item. All right. And as a result of that, she's beginning to look at her, her docket
Mhm.
and recognize that there are areas where, excuse me, bringing in an associate within her firm to work on her behalf for the trust's benefit
Mhm.
can be a good thing. At this point, there is an attorney identified within the firm that Karis would like to introduce to us. So with that, Karis, I'm going to hand this off to you to make the introductions.
Thank you. On the screen this morning is Attorney Eddie Singer, one of our associates. Eddie has been working with the firm throughout law school and now as a young lawyer, and working on many complicated municipal issues. So one of the things that we do when we staff our town council work is that we have a principal attorney and we always have a backup. And I don't typically do that with my non-town council clients, but I think it makes sense actually as a general practice. And I'm actually going to take the lesson from this and do this with several of my other clients because there's just simply one, you guys need somebody else to come to if you're not getting what you need from me. I need somebody to delegate work to and be better at delegating work. And I also need to teach these young attorneys the same things that I know. So Eddie is going to be working with us. I just had her come in today to say hello. We will be working together going forward. I'll still be principally covering, but if I can't be at a meeting, Eddie will come to the meeting. We will not be double billing our time. And in the next month or so, I'll be getting her up to speed on trust activities and priorities. So Eddie, if you want to say hi.
Hi, good morning. It's nice to meet you all virtually. Thank you, Karis, for the introduction.
Just a second.
And that's really all I wanted to do with Eddie today. So
Welcome to the
you
wonderful
guys-
world of affordable housing trust.
have any questions for her? But I'm excited to work with her and actually really excited to teach her more about affordable housing trusts and affordable housing generally and really expand that practice in our firm anyway. So it's actually a good inflection point for me. So thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it.
Eddie, welcome.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
Well, you hold judgment on that.
Thank you, Karis.
You're
You
welcome.
can't do everything and be everywhere all at once.
It is a tough lesson to learn, honestly, when you are used to being the go-to person. But I have to move up in my field and learn that I have to delegate, and that's what I'm doing. So
Spread the wealth.
that's right.
Thank you.
That's right. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you
Get to
very
have all the
much.
fun.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks
Thanks.
for hopping into the meeting. Appreciate it. Okay, next item on the agenda is an update on 43 Elm Unit 2. The first part of that, Rob, is going to be the LIP application update. So, back to Karis on
Yep.
this.
So, LIP application documents, Noreen Brown from South Shore Habitat offered over the summer to work on them. She got them to me, the end of last month. I have gone through them. She and I have had a meeting. We are pretty close, to getting the application filed. I need to coordinate just a couple more things with the town, and I have a couple of changes to make to the documents, but I expect, that we should be able to get these filed within the next week at the, to two at the latest, but I'm shooting for the next week, to get everything done and ready to go. Once the LIP application is filed, it needs to be reviewed by the state and they have to approve it. That has been taking 2 months apparently lately, so, we have to get the LIP filed and approved, before the unit can be sold and put on the SHI. So, as soon as we get that approval, we'll be good to go. We also have an updated price, based on the worksheet that had been done several years ago. Noreen did an updated worksheet and the price is now over 260. I'm gonna submit that price to the state if they want to. You don't have to sell it at that price. We
Right.
can have a discussion later, in executive session about what the appropriate price is. But I want to at least submit that information to the state. They can see it and they can say yes, no, lower it, whatever. So that's all part. The one other question that we have to figure out is, the deed currently has that very restrictive price language in it. What I am unclear about, and I have a call into DHCD, or excuse me, EOHLC to ask, is whether once we get the LIP approved, we actually change the deed then, take out that rider, because I'm afraid that anybody researching, will see that price and then look at the price that's being asked and they'll be inconsistent, and do a confirmatory deed, or we just update the deed at the time of the transfer once the property is sold. So, so the only other thing I may have to do is draft a deed, but otherwise the documents are all drafted. They need a few tweaks and some little more information. We have some administrative pieces, I need to finish up with the town, but, like I said, I think it's about a week's worth of work to get it done.
Is it reasonable to put the document completion date in line with the closing, the 18th, in line with the same date for the closing on,
Sure. Yeah,
on-
I mean, I'd like to get it done before then.
well,
Um,
you too, but,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get, date firm, because if we
Yep.
know that our documents are done then and they're submitted to the state, then we start to, we put the state on the clock.
Yep.
I recognize that I mean, I don't know the legal ramifications of doing it, but it would seem to me that if the language in the deed could be expunged, the pricing language in the deed could be expunged prior to next step, I think, is what, putting it on it's putting it on the market, but it's really putting it in the lottery, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
before we do that, it would seem to me to be a much cleaner process.
I agree with that. I agree with that. It's the process of whether or not we can issue a confirmatory deed, and if that's between the trust and the trust, South Shore Habitat and the trust, that's what I need to talk to
I see.
EOHLC about. I would prefer to do it that way. I think it's cleaner as well, Steve, because again, I don't want that deed out there that people are going to have their title attorney look at and say, why are you asking, X plus 3 price when the price in the deed is X. So,
Right.
and I want to avoid those questions and those issues up front.
Right.
So, I expect to hear back from the state, the council there is pretty prompt. So I reached out to her yesterday and asked her the question, or asked her to call me to talk about the question. I would expect to hear from her shortly. So I will commit to 10/18
Okay,
as a firm date and hope to get it done, before then.
great. Now, one other point of clarification.
Mhm.
We are talking about a selling price. What
Mhm.
we're really referring to in this case is a maximum selling price, correct?
Correct. That's right. That's right. Yes, thank you for that
Sure.
clarification. That is correct.
All right, questions?
Yeah.
How
Rob?
long is the, sorry,
You're next.
how long is the lottery process? Normal for this? Is that is it like, I know with rentals, it has to be up for, you have to
Sale.
advertise for, so, yeah.
Yeah.
So how long is that have to, does it have to be up for a certain amount of time? Or can we put it on the market and it can sell the next day?
I think there has to be a
Yeah.
period of time, so probably 30 days is a reasonable time for folks to get the information, come in. There's usually a meeting. They also have to get some mandatory education about how to become, a qualified buyer. So I think 30 days is probably the shortest amount of time.
So
To
my,
do it.
yeah, where I'm
But
coming from.
We're gonna hire a we're gonna hire a lottery agent to work through that process who does that on a regular basis. So, yep,
So where I'm coming from, can we start that prior to waiting, like in that 2-month period while we're waiting for the state?
I don't think so, but I will ask.
I think the state has to approve it
It has to,
prior to.
yeah,
Without the LIP application being approved, I don't believe it could actually be listed as a affordable unit for sale.
well, it could be listed as an affordable unit. The LIP application really is what it takes to get it on the SHI.
I'm sorry, yes, that. and
Right,
Critical.
Which is
for-
critical, but the two don't necessarily, I mean, it's a good question, Rob, because the two don't necessarily have to happen at the same time.
So could it be listed on the SHI post-sale?
Yes, I think that it could be listed on the SHI post sale. What would have to be, the issue is it could be listed on the SHI post sale, but the deed writer has to be signed and executed by the state. And that is the key part.
Okay,
So my thought wasn't to do it after. It's just that I
Right.
think we have learned everything takes a lot longer than we expect.
Mm.
So if we could start the process
Yep.
of like the selling and getting it out there and even having a contingent or even saying that, this won't be, we can't agree to a closing date until we have the SHI. At least we can get some of this stuff done so that when we do get the SHI,
Yep.
we're not starting from zero.
Yep.
Just like whatever we could do prior, and even it's like getting coming soon or contingent sale
Yeah.
or something
No,
like that.
I think that's an excellent idea. If perhaps we can start a lottery process before the state review, because if the state review is gonna take 60 days, we can have a lottery agent before that and at least have a
Oh, yeah.
and have a conversation and, perhaps, and we can, in the interim too, have a meeting to discuss what you want the sale price to be, which we would obviously have to have before, the lottery starts.
the lottery itself I'm sorry, forgive me. I'll get my question
Thinking the
next,
same
Rob.
thing, I know what you're gonna.
Go ahead and ask.
No, go ahead.
Well, does the law, what I'm thinking, and what I'm asking is whether or not the lottery process itself replaces a typical listing and marketing of
Correct.
this property.
Yes, it does.
Okay, is that what you're?
Yeah, and how does that even work, a lottery thing like that?
There's a lottery agent who manages these processes and they put out a listing, an explanation, and they send it out to certain agencies and they post it around
What kind of agency?
town. Well, they send it out to financing agencies. They send it out to all sorts of state agencies that would deal with, affordable housing, and then they post it in the community, right?
Yep,
And
It's posted in the community, posted on their website.
So anything we ever do going forward, you have to do this for a lot, it goes to a lot.
if we are selling a property that we want to be on the subsidized housing inventory,
Yes.
yes,
like 808 at Jerusalem. We gotta go.
to that-
Well,
Yes.
we actually won't do that because we
Habitat
don't
does
own
Habitat,
Habitat. Will do it.
Habitat.
Habitat, okay, just Habitat, okay.
Yes,
Habitat
but
does
any,
that.
like, any of the developments that you see in town that are selling or renting affordable housing, they are going through this process, the owners of those properties.
Hingham just did one. Hingham has done about 4 or 5 in the last couple of years.
This lottery agent, does he come out of a law firm or where is he?
Nope, they are firms that actually specialize
Okay.
in doing this kind of work. Yep, and the one that I got a recommendation. I spoke to Jen Oram in Hingham earlier this week because they just closed one beginning of the year, end of last year, and they worked with a lottery agent they like, so I gave her name over to Michelle and Cassandra.
In terms of finding a buyer, the people who are looking for affordable housing, are they looking at listings just like we would if we we're buying a regular?
Yes,
So there's
yes,
mechanism there that.
Yep.
I'm just looking at the marketing of this thing in terms of
Yep.
getting to the total audience.
yep, and you know, I was looking at the numbers yesterday. I think the median income in the Boston, Quincy, Cambridge area is about $140,000. And this is a 3-bedroom apartment, so they're be marketing it for a 4-person family. And I think the maximum salary, because you can spend no more than 30% of your sort of adjusted gross income, is 110, 115. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but in that range. A single person is like 88. Obviously, we wouldn't sell a 3-bedroom to a single person. So people out there who are looking understand those numbers are set by the state every year. The average rents obviously different. This is a sales price, but they have a general sense of the sales prices too. They obviously have to get their own financing. They have a 5% down payment requirement, and they have to go through a variety of educational programs, learning how to be a responsible homeowner and what financially it takes to own a home. They go through all of that process. So there is a cohort of people out there looking in this area that, you know, fit within the family size and the income requirements. And like anybody, they will be looking in the communities in which they're interested in living, where they want to send their kids to school or where they work or things like that. So
So there's no preferential treatment for things like we've talked about, people who work in town that can't afford to live on police, fire.
Not-
military people, and all that, they don't, there's no priorities or preferences or anything we can put on that.
In this case, there is not a local preference that's part of getting this on the lip. There have been other projects in town where there have been local preference. That's a separate and an additional approval process because there are some constitutional issues with providing preference based on where you live compared to other people because of the Privileges and Immunities Clause in the United States Constitution and also the similar provisions in the Declaration of Rights. You can't discriminate you can't discriminate, and preference is a form of discrimination based on where somebody lives. So in Hull, I have the same right to have access to this state subsidized housing as anybody in Cohasset or Hingham or Situate or, you know, Drake for if they want to move down to the South Shore. So it's not impossible. It's just another hoop to jump through. And we did not do that with this one.
What and why?
Don't believe that it
I mean,
was.
The other thing
Yep.
is, and I haven't talked to her, how long we've been involved in this thing, whatever, but the people live down below,
Mhm.
her family, her daughters, and whatever wanted, they had an interest in buying that.
Right, and they would have to go through the lottery process and get approved to be
And
in
it's
the
lottery.
lottery process.
Talking about, it's all about odds of getting picked. And then
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. You
Well,
can't,
you can't, if you bid a higher price like you would in any.
No.
no, the price is the price. You have to meet the requirements. And then because there's so much demand for these units, it is absolutely a game of chance to be
Yeah.
the one selected, once you meet the requirements.
Now, are we gonna determine through your office or whatever in terms of what kind of price we're gonna offer for this?
Well, I think that eventually what, that this is a conversation we will have in executive session. Setting the price is built upon, understanding that there's a maximum selling price that we can represent.
And who sets that?
Well, it's already identified
The
by,
state sets it.
Yeah.
There's a worksheet that Noreen has filled out, that identifies what the maximum sales price is.
We already have that.
Yeah.
So we already have that,
You said what's 260,
correct?
265, yeah.
But you all can set whatever price you wish. You can set the max, but that worksheet also is part of what goes to the state and has to be approved.
Oh.
So they have to say, yes, you did the numbers right. Yes, you used the right assumptions. It's based on a combination of, cost. So cost of financing, it also takes into account, the HOA fees. It takes into account, what the maximum income is based on the 80% of AMI, and then how that calculates backwards into what an affordable price is. So it's, it's all formulas that the state sets, and we have that worksheet that's part of what will be submitted to the state.
And this thing about the, you're doing now, you're a master of acronyms. I have no idea what half of them even mean.
Feel free to ask, and I'm happy to explain.
But in terms of this issue about the deed and all that, why can't we just make a decision? We're gonna have a more straightforward deed.
Because there needs to be a legal basis for changing a deed. And I think we may have it, but I just want to confirm with the state
Okay,
before I do it.
Have it, I can't imagine,
I-
because this is confusing, it will be confusing.
Agreed. Agreed.
but there's an element of it that's defined by, what is affordable housing, but the larger and guiding principle is exactly is what you hear, is that, a deed is a definition of a piece of property, right? So if you want to change the definition, you better have a damn good reason to do it, right? And, imagine you go to the county and look up your deed and find out that someone's decided that 8 feet, linear feet on one side of your piece of property and 16 on another really actually belongs somewhere else, right? And why? Because they felt like it. No, you've got to have a good reason for
Yeah,
for
I-
going
I know,
down
I'm
that
just
road.
thinking, and again, I could be totally off base, but you're talking an existing building, it's just the second floor of a building.
Mhm.
Not not from land or
Right.
anything else. So it's just, to me, it's so straightforward, yet we have this, which it could be confusing and looked at as like, why do we have to do this and so forth? And it was
Right.
done beforehand, then
Well, I think that's the goal, is to make sure.
That is the goal.
Is to get the restrictive language existent in the deed now lifted from the deed in its entirety. And that restrictive language, as I understand it, had no accommodation for changes in value over time, inflation rates, et cetera, et cetera. It was put in place, I would have to guess, to meet some affordability requirement at the time of initial purchase.
So the property was donated, the land was donated to Habitat. They built the structure. And I believe, and I don't know for sure because I haven't seen the town meeting votes, but I believe that deed language was a result of the initial transaction between the town and Habitat. And then when Habitat went and started selling the parcels, the units, the first time, and then they sold it to, it wasn't for them to get the house on the SHI because they're not the town. So it wasn't until the town took control. So they wanted the most restrictive language to keep the price as low as possible. And then when it transferred to the town, that was when this whole process was supposed to get started. And then it's the town that can put the house on the subsidized housing inventory because that matters for the town. It doesn't matter for South Shore Habitat. And SHI, subsidized housing inventory. I will try to use the full words and not the acronyms.
Or you'll just try to learn to understand the acronym.
One or the other, one or the
Keep
other.
a cheat sheet.
All
So-
right.
I can put one together,
One last point,
actually.
And we are only selling this, we're not, there's no consideration for renting, right?
No,
Nope.
Okay.
no,
I agree with that, but I just want to make sure, yeah.
I am not certain that,
Don't want to
given
be
our
a landlord.
experience with projects, I don't think.
Don't want to be a landlord.
Want to be a landlord?
No. Cindy, any questions?
No.
Okay.
Just
So-
a quick, real quick question. So, but in talking to your, like Hingham stuff, there's like overwhelming demand for these things, right? Like we'll
Yes.
sell it and we'll get we'll get multiple applications. The lottery agent will qualify them. They have to have a certain income requirement.
Yep.
And then they'll pick.
Yep.
And we'll be done.
Yep. Yep.
2025.
Probably.
Yes.
All right, which leads us with a gentle segue into a project completion update. So I'll turn that over to Rob.
Yes. Well, it's nice to say for the first time since we've been involved in this thing, there is progress being made.
Okay,
Although I talked to, what I do is I periodically talk to Bob Barrow. The good news is that he is, remember, anybody's going to remember in the beginning of this, I had been researching, trying to get for lack of a better term, a clerk of the works, some sort of a project manager. And then the guy we got, I mean, he had no capability of doing that anyway, but said he was going to be able to do the work. Anyway, fast forward, this guy is taking charge of following up on ordering things, Home Depot and all that things that, hadn't been done before. And frankly, most of us who have been involved don't have the time to do this. So he's doing this, and he's also, because he knows our assistant town manager, he's knows he's got to be accountable for everything. But so I asked him to send me an update. Good news is he sent it, but he didn't send it until 7 o'clock this morning. So trying to go through this thing, but I think there's a lot of things that have been completed, which he has indicated to me. Did he send you a copy of this morning or not?
I don't know. I came right here.
Yeah, so as I say, so I think the floors have been done, so we can get the carpet in, from Home Depot. The things that have not been ordered and are still there are the appliances, things from Home Depot. So we got to look at that. Okay, in terms of how we get those ordered.
Yes, he's going to be ordering the materials with the town's card directly.
Okay,
so
he's definitely been given permission to
Yes.
use the
Michelle gave
town's
him
card.
permission.
okay,
But there's been a lot of if anybody has sort of list, and if I can forward that email to you, but the point is, there's been a lot of this miscellaneous stuff that's been done. And he's completed a lot of it in all the bedrooms, and the kitchen is probably the thing that's most of the work and things, but I mean, he's got it under control. I think I mentioned at the last meeting that Jones, our contractor for before, installed the cabinets in the kitchen improperly, which it is so egregious. I mean, I just can't believe it. Everybody knows that from the counter up to the cabinet is 18 inches, and he put them at 12.
Oh,
And the thing that makes it even more stupid, if I can use that word, is that there's plenty of room above the cabinet to the ceiling that he could have put it. It wasn't like he ran out of room, and so that's what he had to do to compensate for it. So,
if I may, just as a matter of awareness, this is a recorded and public meeting. So while we might talk about the actual work product being done, it would be best if we just left the names out of it. Okay, I appreciate it. But it's clear what Rob is pointing out is that the actual execution of the work by the prior contractor was substandard.
yeah, that's the only error that we found, but
Big one.
Not a modest, right? That's a big
Yeah.
one. Okay, so what remains? I'm curious.
well, you got most everything for the kitchen. You gotta get the appliances, and they all have to be installed, which is not a big deal. There's a place for everything. But it's just, getting the carpet in. He's finished all the sanding of the floors and doing all that. The bedrooms is, you know, 3 bedrooms, they're all pretty much done. Except that except for the carpet, the pad and the rug. So it's the kitchen. The bathroom is, the one bathroom is pretty much completed. And the biggest thing is getting the things that in from Home Depot and they're gonna be installing them.
So flooring is flooring in completed?
No, they have to get the rug, the pad and the rugs, but the preparation for it is completed. That was a big contingency because of the
Subfloor.
Because the slow floor, you know, the former owner had a doggy daycare there, so,
Oh,
and nobody knew about it either, so that's a whole nother subject. So there was a urine smell on some of the floors, so we had to get rid of that.
Okay. This does sound like great progress. If you would share that email with the trust board and
Okay,
did you say you had it?
I do not.
Certainly.
what I'll do is maybe I'll
Send it
forward
to
it.
Sandra.
Distribute it.
Would be great.
I did do it right now, except I had trouble with my phone with the Wi-Fi outside of my house.
Don't worry, after the meeting's great.
It will have to be tomorrow, probably, because I'm tied up all day tonight.
Okay,
I'm gonna be away from my house. And you guys don't wanna know about my Wi-Fi problem.
okay, so,
And after we get it out, if anybody's got any comments or suggestions, I mean, welcome, if there's something I've missed or whatever, but
well, I've got,
what I'm doing is that he's pretty much doing things on his own, you know, as we requested. And he seems to be moving forward. It just, like anybody, I think it just needs a little push once in a while, so I'm trying to keep in touch with him on a weekly or bi-weekly schedule.
is there any further word on whether or not we need to address the fire escape?
I had reached out to South Shore Habitat because it is on the exterior of the building. They have no record of it being inspected, so it does need to be inspected,
Okay,
which they would be responsible for as the head of the HOA. Because it's on the
oh,
exterior.
South
of the
Shore,
building.
yeah, I know, and they would very much like to, this is like gum on their shoe, being head of the HOA. That's a subject for a later conversation with South Shore and the town, come to think of it. So,
For some reason, the fire department doesn't do any of that.
They do not do the inspections, no.
No. Cause
who
I talked-
does, who would be responsible for that?
building inspector.
it's a building code
Okay.
issue.
Yeah.
So I know, Mr. Hallen has spent some time in the unit already, inspected, no, I shouldn't say inspected, but certainly reviewed the electrical, plumbing, et cetera, and offered his insights. I'm assuming that, well, I shouldn't say that. I would imagine that Mr. Barrow has already got appointments set up with John Hallen for, you know, the review of electrical, for instance, GFI outlets needed in a particular room. And, you know, sign off on plumbing.
No, he will, but don't forget, all this is the interior.
Right.
But
and
he
that-
supposedly, because I talked to John Dockery way back. And I know him very well anyway, so he would have helped out if he could, but he says, we just don't do it. He said, you gotta call the building inspector. And I did contact him, but it was shortly after Halloran started.
So the question is,
So we gotta find out, gotta find out, is he gonna do something about it, or is he gonna work it out with the previous owner, or what?
but that's really the question is that something that we can coordinate between South Shore and Hallen?
I can reach out to South Shore again, and specify that this should be done prior to the unit being closed.
Yeah, this would
Yeah.
be harrowing to find out that we get
God.
everything done and
You gotta
then,
go through all this, and then
Yeah.
everything gets stuck because of that issue, which, you know, is not a big deal unless there's something wrong.
unless the building's on fire, in which case it's a big deal, so. But no, this is, I look at this, I recognize that we don't, as unit owners, we, the trust, don't have sway on it. Having said that, I would imagine that South Shore is gonna be, if there's a cost involved and it exceeds their reserves, there's gonna have to be some negotiation that arises. So we'd like to get that tackled sooner rather than later.
Is
All
that a
right.
Noreen question? Have you reached out to her?
I reached out to Beth, but I realized that Beth is retiring, so may have.
Beth is done. She retired, I think, the end of September, didn't she? No,
No,
okay.
She's on until mid-November.
Oh, okay, all right.
But obviously
They bumped
she's
it further.
training and.
But Noreen
other
is
things.
really the project person, so she
Yeah,
might
I
be,
can reach out to Noreen.
that's who I would suggest.
Not that I know a whole lot about it, but Noreen seems to be very cooperative when you ask her to do something.
She's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
very helpful. So
so just so we get this straight. Who's reaching out to Noreen? Should we, should you? Okay, thank
I
you,
will reach
Cassandra. All right, and I would, and that, can you forewarn John Hallen? No, I shouldn't say forewarn, but can you point out that he'll probably be hearing from Noreen?
Oh, he already knows about it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I just want to make sure that we can get onto his schedule. Or I should say, this event can get onto his schedule, so that any work that needs to be done is identified rapidly. So that between then, ourselves and Noreen, we can figure out how to execute.
Is this just one of the things, is there any? Has he done an inspection of the whole exterior, for example, gutters?
Has John inspected the
Yeah, I
gutters?
mean,
No.
that's, I don't know if that's part of this whole deal or
No,
not.
that's, that, I just, my own modest level of experience with sitting on condominium boards is that is that comes back to the unit owners and the association, right? So it's not a health and safety issue.
Okay.
All right. All right. Can we move on? Are we good? You feel like
I'm fine.
Full complete, okay. 808 Jerusalem, do you have you talked to Habitat about an update where they are?
Yeah, they've been giving regular updates to the steering committee.
Oh,
they are
great.
In the building phase.
Yep.
The town actually has a group going out tomorrow to do a build day. So I will be there tomorrow doing whatever it is that they need.
Good for you.
So they're just currently in the process of, continuously fundraising, working on the build.
Where have they shared with you where they are in the fundraise?
I think they've made significant progress. I don't have an exact number, but I would say they're at least 75% of the way there.
Beautiful cardinal, sorry.
He does not like his reflection.
Is that what that is? Okay. That's I have to say, I drive past the site every single day, coming and going to my house. And watching the progress is really heartening.
Mm.
It's really something. And if you,
Yeah, I ran by it for the first time and it's like, there's a structure.
It's
It's been
really-
many months since I've been there and it's like, oh, it's like so nice to see. Oh my God.
it's really,
10 years, we did it.
it's, don't laugh. I mean, I was on the select board with Paul
Mm.
when that piece of property transferred.
Mm.
It was 160 million years ago.
Mhm.
So it's, yeah,
Haven't
it's,
aged a bit.
I know, isn't it something? The wonders of plastic surgery. What can I tell you? All right, that's great news. And so it's possible that they'll have a CO sometime early in 25?
Potentially. Yeah, I don't know how early in 25, but
I'm just watching the external, the envelope go up. I mean, the rafters, it was dark last night, so I couldn't tell, but the rafters weren't up, but the walls are, and so.
Yep. I know that they do have, they've already selected the 2 homeowners. So
I remember hearing about that. That's great news. So. All right. Next item on the agenda is the investment policy statement. Rob, I'm gonna hand it off to you. Rob, talked to me last night and pointed out that he's still waiting for some feedback from our investment advisors, but,
Yeah.
Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is my turn to say that I dropped the ball. And it's like I definitely took longer. There were some things in my life that took other focus, but have been going back and forth with the investors, the investment company. I forgot to send out what they had sent, but just wanted to go over where we're at right now. If you remember going way back when, we drafted a very pretty nice investment policy statement. We sat with them, they gave it to them. They said, yeah, that's wonderful. Then they kind of came back and gave us a very cookie cutter, you know, example. And so we've done some back and forth, but basically what they're going to provide to us is a strategic asset allocation, and so we can kind of agree to that. Where they're at, I think I'm pretty okay with, excuse me. We were at equity of 20 to 40%. They're suggesting 15 to 45, giving themselves a little bit wider range. Fixed income, we were at 60 to 80. They're at 45 to 65 because they're going a little bit higher on the fixed income. They added in a balanced, from 0 to 10, and then cash at 0 to 10. We were 1 to 20. In discussions with them, they're a little reluctant to put a lot in cash, and they're saying, like, we talked about the liquidity. And the truth is, with T+1, they can sell out of anything and have cash the next day. It's not like that. So from a liquidity standpoint, it shouldn't be a problem. It's more from a risk standpoint. Basically, if you just at a very high level, that's about, 65% fixed income, 35% equity. Just wanted to put that out there if people feel that that's a pretty conservative balance. And I think for us, it's more about retention of capital with a little bit of growth, but we're not looking to make tons of money off of this. And just wanted to make sure people were still okay with that. And the other question is they were kind of pushing alternatives. I said, no, I didn't think that's something that really would make sense. Even if it does have some liquidity, I don't know if it'd be a good look if something bad happened. It's like, why was the Affordable Housing Trust investing in hedge funds?
Bitcoin.
Yeah. I'll throw it out there too, just to make sure that people agree. Yes, I get that it's part of a diversified portfolio, but I also recognize that we're a public, people might look at it and this isn't where we want to be spending our time defending our investment policy statement.
No, it isn't. Having said that, I could argue that we could certainly define what are acceptable alternatives, and what their characteristics would be. So as an example, liquidity is required,
Yeah.
right? And so now you're looking at liquid funds typically. And those would be engaged in, potentially could be engaged in real estate infrastructure and infrastructure. And the basis of that is that there are expected income flows from there. And to the degree that it actually does make sense, if you define it from that standpoint, then they add a risk diversifier. Having said that, if that were acceptable to the trust and we were to point that out to the investment advisors, they might find that so restrictive as to not do it. So
Yeah, and what I've been finding, and it's like, and part of this is just the realistics. Like, while it's a lot of money to us, this is insignificant,
Right.
To them. And so they have certain, if you say yes to alternatives, it's yes to the alternatives that they think are good. They're not going to deal with the nuances. So my concern is, I don't want us in some Bitcoin fund, even if it has daily liquidity, because if that blows up,
I agree with you.
and then everybody's gonna want our heads, for it. And it's like, our goal should be, that's not, I agree with you from it would make perfect sense from a investment, standpoint. I'm just thinking more of a PR standpoint.
So from that end, I would say then, from my view, then, the rollback to that is if you're looking for alternatives as a diversifier for portfolio risk, then you're back to saying, well, then let's hold some element of cash.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Can I just point out where we've come from
Mm.
relative, it was highly restrictive
Yeah.
in what we were living with before.
Yeah.
No opportunity for income growth at all.
Yeah.
So
We're better.
I think, we
Yeah.
could be happy with what you're describing they have there.
And,
Yeah.
and I would just add in thinking about the policy and the decisions, go back perhaps to the prudent investor statute
Yeah.
and, look at sort of the questions about exercising reasonable care and skill and, considering managing investing assets that are, the investment strategy is reasonably suited to the trust. So I think that's what you've done
Yeah.
in your analysis.
Yeah, that's it's very different from the legal list.
Yeah. So
Yes.
what I was gonna go back with, if everybody's okay here, is right now they have cash at 0 to 10. I do think that we should say we want some cash in there because this is a capital preservation, and that's kind of what we had discussed previously. So
Yeah.
maybe it's like we say you can have a 5 to 15 range, but you must have 5% in cash or even 10%.
Some, yeah, or even a hard dollar amount.
Yeah.
We don't know what our requirement's gonna be. Right now, we are expending cash.
Yep.
Right, because we've got 43 Elm and, really, we've got 43 Elm.
Yep.
Ideally, a future trust board will have excess capital, that would be neat. And you could afford to look at the investment policy statement at that point and say, well, do we need to adjust?
Mhm.
At this juncture, it sounds to me as if we're on track with the original objectives. If you're looking for finalization, and that number, that either percentage or hard dollar amount, I think we just guide it from where we stand as a total trust asset and figure out whether or not it's a percentage or a dollar amount looking out toward the coming year. Now, I realize, just to explain the mechanics of disbursement. I don't know I don't know how our finance director will actually execute it, but I do know that, for example, we're going out to buy appliances for 43 Elm. And that goes on the credit card, basically the town's general fund takes care of it, but the town's general fund turns around and says, all right, who owes me? Right, besides the taxpayers, we owe. Right now, generally speaking, and you could correct me on this, but generally speaking, that true up is done, it is absolutely done at the end of the fiscal year. And it can be done intermittently otherwise. But the point is that just because we bought refrigerators and stoves, doesn't mean that next month the trust is being tapped.
Mhm.
Okay? And so I think understanding that, it allows you to carry a higher invested balance, but we should recognize that money coming from the trust to pay for our expenses will come out periodically, and it's much better at that point to take it from cash rather than take the risk that it's coming from a shrinking portfolio.
Mhm.
Okay? That's my thought process on it. So whether it's a hard dollar amount or whether it's a percentage, I think we should confirm
I
that.
suggest that maybe you do a combination. In other words, take a percentage, but then have a minimum, just based on what you're saying, we're gonna have expenses, so have a minimum hard cash and a
Yep.
percentage, because if this thing fell apart, then we don't.
Yeah, it could be an either or.
Yeah, and I'll see what they're willing to do, and it's like, because, but if they're like maybe like a minimum 50K and then a 5 to 15%, allocation, and it's like, I think to your point is, we're gonna put an order in to say we need X dollars in cash. So if it's not, if it's not in cash, they're gonna sell that day, to
Right.
do it. Whereas if we have the cash balance, they can just take it out of the cash and then they can go through their normal
can-
rebalance.
yeah, they can rebalance
process.
on a
So
quarterly
that's
basis to
kind of
replenish.
what we're trying to accomplish. All right. So I'll talk to them on that. I think otherwise the bans are pretty good. I'll look to have that finalized and so that we can vote on it next month. The other piece that they had in there is that they would do 2 meetings where they kind of say how things are going. Right now, it's worded to just go to the treasurer. I think we would want to be included on
Yeah.
that. So I'll just ask them to, okay, it's like the treasurer with the Affordable Housing Trust. Yeah, to see it twice. And I think twice a year should be fine.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
I would agree with that, but absolutely the trust should be
Yeah.
included in that gathering. Well, and whether or not it's live or remote is.
Yeah, and I imagine what's happening is they're probably presenting all of the accounts
Could
at
be,
once.
yep.
And so, but I go, that's fine. Well, we can, I'll word it so it's representation from the trust. So it doesn't have to be all of us. If we can't do it, we won't stop the meeting from happening. But as long as a representative amount of us can go, that's fine.
Okay,
All right, so I'll get those changes in with the goal of having that out to everybody before the meeting. And, then we can hopefully vote on it, and be done with this, next meeting.
all right. Any questions? All right, great.
Cool.
Moving along, last item on the agenda is the invoice and payment review for MHTL. Those of you at last meeting, had asked for this to be on the agenda. I have reviewed the conversation that the trust board had with Karis. And I think it's fair to represent that the request for putting this on the agenda was as much as anything, it wasn't so much an itemized dissection of an individual invoice as it was sending a message that we were looking for some address and attention on outstanding items which had lagged. Okay, but we've already addressed one of those today. Karis asked me yesterday as to whether or not she should be prepared for, I think, I'm paraphrasing, but should she bring her armor and shield?
Well,
No, I think it's going to be a candid conversation, but with that, let's start with to the trust. Let's start with the outstanding invoices which had been presented for payment at last meeting. And are there questions on those individual invoices?
Yes.
Or are there comments? Okay, go ahead.
You've taken out the October condo fee for flood insurance, but it hasn't changed the total due on this latest invoice.
No, we're talking about,
Oh, MHTL. No,
MHTL,
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
law firm bills,
Lawfare?
but when we
Law
get to that, I'll get to that question.
Okay.
law firm bills.
Back to that. I'm good with that.
Okay.
We've had that discussion.
All right,
Yeah, and Karis has resolved the concerns that we all had.
okay. So are there any other questions or comments on this? MHTL invoices. Okay, so if there are not, then I'd love to hear a motion for execution on these invoices.
Motion to pay our bills. For
Second.
law firms.
Okay, well, since we're in person and there's no one else joining us, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I'm sorry. That is a unanimous vote. There are no nays, so the motion is approved. We shall pay our bills. All right, bear with me here. Next meeting date, November 13, 2024. Another administrative item, and this falls within the topics not anticipated. I just want to bring it up now. I never got an invitation from Hull. They said they wanted to do an October 8th get together, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh.
And I had responded by email.
I
and
did, I
included
saw that you responded.
Yeah, and she had come back and said, okay, we'll get out an invitation to you. I was assuming that was a an Outlook invitation.
I also would have assumed, but I never received anything, so.
Okay, so just want you to know that I'm not being unresponsive to Hull's Affordable Housing Trust. They'd asked us if we would just show up at one of their meetings and talk about our experiences and, maybe give them some moral support as they get rolling, right? So just so you know, I'm not being a jerk. I was thinking about it last night around 7 o'clock saying,
What was?
Now what? It's entirely possible that they sent it to the dead letterbox, which is my town email address. Right. And all of which reminds me, apparently the town email has changed from .org to .gov sometime in the last 2 years,
Mhm.
which doesn't matter because I still wouldn't know how to get into it. So although I do copy it. on a regular
I copy it
basis.
anytime I send you something.
So in any case, if you hear from them, just understand, we weren't being,
I will
we
express
weren't
that.
being ignorant of their stuff. I just didn't have it.
I'm sure we were on their agenda and cursed us.
Yeah. All right, and now is your
Sorry, the point.
your moment to shine. The
No.
HOA fee for 43 Elm.
Yeah.
October.
So, yeah,
So-
Cassandra obviously is aware of it, so. go
Yes,
ahead.
so the bill that you're seeing does include the portions that were already paid. The way that the town works is that you cannot pay like the October condo fee until October has happened.
Ah,
So they sent this bill to me, including August, September, and October. We have paid August, September, and the 3-month builder's risk. So this vote would only be for the 256 and 13 cents. Because that small portion has not been paid yet.
So we paid 3,736
Yes,
already, so now we're only just going to vote on paying the.
256.
256.
13 cents.
So, yes, and the builder's risk insurance. I pray this is the last one.
So
It's nice to
on
have
that
you.
note, the new builder's risk insurance does still need to be signed by you.
Send it off. I'm going into the office. I can get it executed. All right, so this being an expenditure, I think we need a vote on it. So Cindy, please go ahead with the motion.
I move that we pay the October condo fee to the HOA for the 43 Elm to Habitat for Humanity.
Okay,
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Raise our hands too.
Yes.
Do I get to vote twice?
No. All right, minutes for September 11th, last month's meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review?
Sure.
Okay. Don't be a smart aleck.
Motion to approve minutes.
All right, so I got a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second,
All right.
thanks again,
Discussion.
Christine.
Yes, this has been a big help. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Once again unanimous, so there are no nays. Do we have any additional topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting?
One quick, do we have affordable housing steering committee coming next time?
The agenda's not set yet, but I would like that. And I would ideally like to set in that agenda, the steering committee participating in executive session with respect to a specific parcel of land, as well as a separate item in the executive session, which is setting selling price for 43 Elm. Okay,
So is
Um,
that technically two separate executive?
It's two
sessions?
separate executive sessions, both under exemption 6.
Yep. that's what I
The
was thinking.
parcel of land doesn't need to mention the parcel of land. The sales price for 43 Elm should
We'll mention
mention 43 Elm. Just
But-
list 43 Elm after.
do we functionally need to come out of one to go back into the other?
No, you
No.
can vote to go into executive session for both at the same time.
That's what I was hoping to do. So the short answer is, to your question is, yes, we hope to have, and with advance warning to steering committee, have them involved. Steering committee has had several ideas that they would like to promote, much more actively than they have. One of which involves a parcel.
Mhm.
That the town currently owns.
Yep.
All right.
That's what I was gonna say, like, it's because we're so close, like only probably a year from getting all these other ones done, so it's like, okay, we gotta start something up.
Well, I think, seriously, though, when you're looking to transfer a parcel of
Mhm.
land,
Yeah.
now's the time to be talking about it because it doesn't happen without a town meeting vote.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that comes up, and that would come up at not special town meeting, but rather
Spring, annual.
annual town meeting.
um, and I don't know if they have it, it'd be interesting to get an update where we are, you know, like how many new units have been built since the census and, you know, just, you know, like,
SHI update.
how are we
Yeah,
falling
SHI update.
behind? Yeah.
I can give that to you.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
We lost 4.
We lost 4, yeah.
We lost 10.
10. 10, that's right, we lost 10. We didn't lose 4, we kept 4. Yeah, that's,
So it'd be good to know where we stand on that, just to kind of feel like, okay, we've got, I mean, it's 6 years, you know, 5 years, but we know things take time, so it'd be good to understand.
well,
I'd also like to, I don't know if this is available, but maybe the Affordable Housing Steering Committee. What is the rental market like in Cohasset? Is it, like, how many empty units are there? Is that really a problem, or is that?
you mean for affordable?
No, just in general.
General.
There, it's tight.
Is it tight? Yeah, I just would want to confirm
Yeah.
that.
I'll give you an example, there's.
I
there's-
don't know that the steering committee would have that information.
Mhm.
But I also don't know that there's a big gap in like empty units.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think most of them are either filled or filling quickly when they're.
Which raises the question, what about the one on South Main Street? Have those-
147.
Yeah.
Shivo.
Mr. Schiavo's.
So he, that's actually a good update for things not anticipated. So the trust is issuing the first installment because he has contracted with MCO Housing as the lottery agency. So, and he's provided a copy of the signed contract. So we are in the process of issuing that first installment to him.
Yep.
Yay.
Okay, it's yeah, things take a long time. And yet at the same time, some things don't take a long time.
Yeah.
So a good example is One Pleasant,
Mhm.
right? 10 units disappeared because the builder ran out of funds. The town decided that they were gonna move in, but it doesn't work. Now if they're rental units, blah, blah, blah. The next thing you know, you've switched to condominium, 4 are affordable and 10 are not.
Yeah, how about just, you're going on with the, Stop and Shop,
Yeah, those count.
yeah, I know they do, but what's the status on that?
They've got COs. I
That's what-
think on all of them
There's
now.
People in there.
Yeah,
There
that's
are
true.
actually some people, but I didn't know how many he had sold.
I
He
think
didn't sell them. He's renting. Those are all
That's
rentals.
it, they're all rentals.
Those are all rentals.
But that would be good for the update, you know, it's like, okay, these have actually happened, these are what's still.
Even the ones
coming,
with
yeah.
with McGoldrick,
Those are all rented.
yeah.
Those
That
are all
was
rented.
wild about a year ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
2 years
Yeah.
ago.
But those are, those,
Those
we've
are
had some successes. It doesn't take much to get a drawback, but when you look around, and I just noticed this because I am here 3-4 days a week, and then I come back, and if there's 4 inches to build on and it can be permitted, it's getting built upon.
Mhm.
And, so we've got a task ahead of us. I think, when you give that SHI update, it's gonna be based on the 2020 census. But we can make projections.
Yeah.
Based upon permitting, we can make projections and look ahead and recognize where our shortfall might come, if there is going to be, or if it's going to be tight.
Mhm.
My guess is we probably need to find, build, create, identify, whatever. At least somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 20
Yeah.
more units.
And that's really what my goal would be, is like, how many do we have now? Given the permitting, where do we expect to be at 2030? And so what's that delta? So that we
Yeah.
can have that discussion with the Affordable Housing Steering Committee. And I know they have the parcel of the land thing, but I think if you do look at stuff that happens quickly, the McGoldrick stuff happened really quickly. That's, well, a year.
Tell you that.
Yeah, well, but it was like, once they got the approval to do it, they got into it was an existing, I'm just thinking,
There,
we're learning a lot. That, you know,
Yes.
us becoming landlords or general contractors,
No.
not good. You know, so finding existing buildings that we can convert with just a change of a deed, you know, might be an area where
well, it's,
want to look at. And I
it's
think
a-
that's part of the discussion for next
Yeah.
week. I don't mean to have that now.
no,
but-
that's, I think that the steering committee is looking at that too, there are specific circumstances where that pays off.
Yeah.
The owner of that particular building looked at it and said, you know, when I go, this goes into my estate.
Yeah.
And my kids don't want to be landlords,
Mhm.
right? And so his view on it was that the developers at the harbor paid him for a deed restriction and a
Mhm.
handsome sum, which he could then turn around and, and in present give to his children, knowing that the sale of the property would still go through upon his passing with the deed restriction in place. But now it's going to people who actually wanted to administer that. And so that's a fairly specific circumstance, but not unique.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's kind of what you're looking for. Having said that, it's not like we're just flush with rental properties in the town outside of the preserve. I mean, most of them are smaller entities. Having said that, they're in many cases owned by older property owners
Mhm.
who may face the same
Yeah.
issues. So,
And what, what some other towns have done is they put a number out there. Like, if you're willing to do a deed restriction, we will give you this much money.
well, that's exactly the point, right? The trust could expend funds on that basis.
Yeah.
And why not? There is a discounted value to the building with a deed restriction, right?
Yeah.
Because you're basically saying, I'm going to limit what you can generate for income on this in the future. Do a discounted cash flow, but ultimately, it's got to make financial sense to the property owner, or maybe they have a larger altruistic motive.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an area that we should be looking at. And even if we come by a parcel, a good example is 808 Jerusalem.
Mhm.
Come by a parcel of land that suits creation. The fact is that our job at that point is to provide financial assurance for a developer. Now, Habitat was the developer there. If we get into something larger, maybe it's a private for-profit developer developing affordable housing because frankly, they've got the resources to do it and to work with it quickly. More quickly than having to go out and raise money from individuals. It's all of it fits in, but I agree with you for our purposes of rapid action. That is an area that really needs to be explored by, we think needs to be explored and we should be encouraging the steering committee to do exactly that. That's topic for discussion next
Yeah.
meeting,
So
so.
that'll be good.
I just wanted to ask, in terms of what the Affordable Housing Steering Committee is looking at, you're pointing out numbers of parcels and places that that largely are held by the town or otherwise. They also look at places that may be up for sale in the town by private owners that would
They get
work
appro-
well if it were done in an affordable.
when I was there, they get approached. So there are people trying to look at it to see, it's like, hey, would this be something that
Uh-huh.
more of like, would you help develop like co-development? There was something over by the train station,
Yeah.
like somebody owned a
Yeah.
parcel and stuff like that. Didn't work out, but it's like so it's that's more of people come in as opposed to, I think, I
That's-
have to talk to Paul, but I don't think he's scouring the MLS, for looking for stuff.
But it's something that came up. I
Yeah.
wonder, do they keep that in the?
Yeah, the train station, that parcel was actually, I
Mhm.
think it abuts the golf course, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I think that came back up before the planning board sometime in the last several months by, no?
No.
I thought I had seen something on that, a multi-unit development. But anyway, long and short of it is, that, yeah, let's discuss all of this with Paul.
Yeah.
All right, I think we've run out of topics on the agenda. I'm past time in any case, so,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all the, fair enough.
All in favor?
Let's go. All in favor, say aye.
I.
All right, unanimous. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.